Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 32, overall 362 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. Tell them Chris Palme sent you. And also, you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. As always, Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. I hope everyone's doing well on this Monday, January 29th, 2024. This is my second show of the day, and I'm looking forward to my guest today. This will be her third appearance on my show, and it's probably been about a year and a half, but I'm really excited to have her on. Her name is Kelsey Nicole Nelson. She's a TV reporter, radio host, podcast host of her own show called Listen In with KNN. And she's also a media personality out of Washington, D.C. And she's a very busy person, and I really appreciate Kelsey giving me some time tonight to come on and talk some NFL playoffs and preview the Super Bowl. Good evening, Kelsey.
How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Of course, my pleasure. It's always fun with you.
Hey, I always keep track of you on social media, and very impressive, and congratulations on the career that you're building.
Thank you so much. It means a lot, Chris. I'm just proud of you on your journey. I remember when you first started out and we connected via social media. I love that you're still plugged in. I tell young people all the time, that's what's needed in this field to succeed. You have to have a desire and you have to have the determination to keep going. And I'm just so proud of all you built. And I'm just honored that you think I'm cool enough to come back on. So thanks again, Chris.
That's awesome. Hey, you're my first guest to have their picture taken with the president and his wife. I was going to ask you, how did that come about with Joe Biden and Jill Biden, who is a Philadelphia sports fan, by the way?
Both of them, yes, they're Philadelphia sports fans. Yeah, I remember going up to them, and when they found out I do sports, that's the first thing President Joe Biden said. How about the Eagles? Of course, didn't turn out too well. Sorry, Eagles fans, but no, it was a wonderful opportunity to meet, obviously, Biden and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden. I had a chance to go just because I'm very involved in D.C., but me and my entire executive board of the Washington Association of Black Journalists, we were invited out by the current press secretary. So thank you so much for the invite. We had a wonderful time, and I think it just really showed the White House's commitment to diversity in journalism, which I think means so much. And so it was a fun time. The food, that's the best food I've ever had. I almost didn't leave, but then of course Secret Service was like, yeah, you guys got to go. But it was a wonderful time. A lot of other journalists were there. It was a journalist Christmas party, so lots of journalists here in DC who either cover politics or cover the White House were there. So it's also just like, I felt like a meeting amongst friends and family, just seeing other great familiar faces here in the nation's capital. So Chris, just one of the perks of living here in DC, and honestly one of the reasons why I love staying here, because there's just always something happening and always something to be at.
Were you a little bit nervous meeting President Biden and his wife Jill?
I was more nervous at how the picture was going to turn out, because I was like, everyone's going to want to see this picture and it needs to be good. But yes, of course I was nervous. I think I was maybe like, I think was actually more excited is the word, Chris. I had this like big giddy smile on that I couldn't take off my face. It was like a permanent grin. And I think I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. Like, like most people would be. So, it was a really cool opportunity. I felt like 5-year-old me going to the White House, and people think for some reason, Chris, in DC that like happens all the time, and it doesn't. So it was a very unique opportunity to have, and it's something I will always cherish. And that picture will probably at least be my featured photo, Chris, on Facebook for at least a year. I'm not going to get tired anytime soon.
I just think that's awesome. And you know what? Lately, I've been meeting a lot of celebrities in professional sports. You know what?
Yeah.
To be honest, when I was in my 20s, I don't think I could have done this because I would have been too shy and too nervous. And now I just treat coaches and players and people I meet just
Human.
like regular people. Yeah, human
They're like
beings.
us. They're just
Yeah,
like us. They're just a little bit more athletic than most of us, but they are just great people. And honestly, that's why I love this
yeah,
job.
yeah,
It's a people business,
yeah.
and nobody ever disappoints.
And I've had a number of my guests on from Washington D.C. too, by the way. And I've had Adam on and Donna Hopkins on from
Donna's
Tony
awesome.
McGee's.
Adam's awesome. Yeah, been on the
Adam,
Maternity Pro Football Plus on Mass
yeah,
and here. That's DC Media family right there.
they've been really good. Even though I'm an Eagles fan, I'm getting to know people around the National Football League,
That's
and
awesome.
it's kind of hard to cheer for other teams when you get to meet their media people that cover their.
We're not too bad here in DC.
Oh, but what's the quickly before we get to the NFL championship games? What's the latest on the Washington Commanders coaching situation?
Ooh, everybody wants to know. I think right now for Commanders fans, it's been hard to have a waiting process, but obviously I think getting Adam Peters in that position in place and just knowing I think that Josh Harris is doing his due diligence, Chris, to build this leadership staff, I think the right way. Because Washington fans, to be honest with you, Chris, they don't want to go through another wasted draft. Believe me, Washington fans, we're looking at that Ravens game on Sunday thinking, how did we pass on Kyle Hamilton? Do you see how much of a stud he is, for the Baltimore Ravens? And then obviously now they get to see former faces, Trent Williams and Chase Young, heading off to a Super Bowl, right? So I think Washington really wanted to make sure that, whoever comes in here, one is hopefully able to get this culture and pride back. You're talking about one of the most storied franchises, Chris, in the National Football League. A franchise that has known success, but it's been a long time. It's been a long time coming. And so I think, when you look at that, I think fans are, just really hoping it's the right guy. There was a lot of faith, obviously, in Ron Rivera. Obviously, you got people saw how that turned out. I think that Ben Johnson is somebody that people should really be looking at here, in Washington. There's mixed, people feeling about Eric Bieniemy getting a chance to interview and potentially be it. I think when Eric Bieniemy first came in, many fans felt like, it was positioning him to take that head coaching reins. But then, of course, when the team goes out and wins 4 games, Chris, and has offensive struggles, obviously, I think it put a big scratch on most people's head, for that offense. So all in all to say, I think, Washington is hoping, Washington fans are hoping, I think that decision comes soon, but I also think they realize, Josh Harris, one being from the area. I know he's one of your guys, Chris, in Philly, with the 76ers, but him being from the area here in DC, and he really knows, what this team can be, because he's been here for the great years, even though obviously he was much younger. I think he just knows how right this has to be, because this is a Washington franchise, Chris, that has been through the coaching carousels, that has been through the quarterback carousels, like just so many people, and no stability. And it's hard to really build anything if you don't have consistency. You look at the teams that, just played here right next door to me in Baltimore. You have a Ravens team that has built consistency with the head coach and John Harbaugh being one of the longest tenured coaches right now in the National Football League, and Lamar Jackson obviously being the quarterback. On the other side, Andy Reid, lots of consistency, obviously, with him and Patrick Mahomes. And I think that's what Washington fans want. They know this head coach is going to be important to hopefully picking the quarterback of the future, who will hopefully eventually be the franchise quarterback for Washington, Chris, because it's been a while. So I'm about to say there's lots of hope and optimism, but just also a lot of anxiety, hoping that finally, Chris, this can be hopefully the right time that we can actually not just invite the guy to dance here with us in Washington, but invite him to stay and to hopefully marry us and bring us lots of happiness and celebration and success here in DC.
There's one team that comes in mind when I think of the Washington Commanders. It's a team that had struggled for decades and decades and decades. They finally got a new owner in Sheila Ford Hempt. She brought in Brad Holmes, brought
Yeah.
in Dan Campbell,
Yeah.
and restored the Detroit Lions within 2.5 years. I think if you have the proper ownership, hire the right GM, hire the right coaching staff,
Yep.
there's no reason why the Washington Commanders can't turn this thing around in 2 years or 3 years, possibly.
You just made a lot of people smile here in DC with saying that. And that's exactly right. I think, if the Lions have obviously shown that they can do that, like you said, why can't Washington? So I think that's really what this is. And, the Lions, I think, have built a blueprint. You're talking about a franchise, Chris, that was, unfortunately, sorry for a long time. And, all of a sudden there's a new sense of hope and urgency, and as Dan Campbell just said in their press conference now, the Lions have turned themselves now to be a team to have a target on their back because of the success that they had this year. I think that's what Washington fans want to just get back to, like the glory days of the NFC East when Washington was a top contender. They're tired of being at the bottom. They're tired of being a laughingstock. So I think you're right. I think what the Lions have done is going to be probably what Josh Harris is looking at, what Adam Peters is looking at, and saying, hey, how do we replicate that here for our own franchise to have success, to be not just competitive in the NFC, but hopefully to soon bring a Lombardi eventually home here to Washington, D.C.
It's been too long. It's been over 30 years.
Too long.
Over
Chris,
30
it's
years.
my lifetime. I haven't seen it. So it needs to happen. I'm not trying to be gone from this earth by the time it happens.
Yeah, I guess I'm ancient. I've seen them win in the 80s and early 90s, and they had the ownership with Jack Can't Cook, Joe Gibbs. Yeah. They had consistency, and they knew how to draft well. Bobby Beathard, the GM, they had stability, and that's what this franchise needs to do to get back to those glory years.
Yeah. And that's exactly what people are asking for, because they're saying, hey, it's been done before. It's why people, if you ever come to a Commanders game and Joe Gibbs come back, it's almost like it's like a second coming. Yeah. I mean, he's that cherished, and people are just so thankful for all he did here, because that's when Washington was good. And like you said, it was something that fans could truly be proud about and happy about. That's what they want again. And it's just been too long, Chris, for fans to be waiting. I've been to enough Commanders themed funerals, unfortunately, where people just wanted more for that person, Chris. And again, we just want joy and happiness back here in DC. It's bad enough we're right now seeing our potential Wizards and Capitol leave next door to go off to Virginia. So I think Washington fans just need something to be happy about.
What's your thoughts quickly on Magic Johnson's, I guess he has a minority ownership in the team now too?
Yeah, honestly, I think Magic Johnson is a key piece. Even though he's a minority owner, he's very visible, very present. If you are on X, he is very good with his fingers during games and would tweet his thoughts, on the X platform. And I think Magic Johnson being there, it's a reminder that you have somebody that knows what it is to win championship. Right at the top level, not only somebody that can win on the field or obviously on the court at his time, but it's somebody that also understands business acumen. You look at him and how successful, Chris, he's been as a businessman as well. So you have somebody that understands sports, understands business, and obviously somebody that's still, I think, young enough that the players can relate to him and know his story, and be inspired by his story. And so I think, Josh Harris has been really great with making sure, and Magic Johnson as well. He's been here. He's interacted with the fans. He's been there for the people. He's interacted with the players, and they all have just nothing but glowing sensations to say about him. And so I think it's really good that, he's as active and involved and really showing, he's not afraid to tweet his emotions, Chris, really showing that, he wants this team to be great, and he knows they can be great, and not afraid to say, we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that this team gets back to that greatness. I think he's also bringing a sense of accountability to Washington, Chris, that fans have long been waiting for.
Yeah, I have a basketball team right now, the Detroit Pistons, and they're a huge mess. And the fans right now are telling the owner to sell the team, and it's just.
Have you heard of the Wizards, Chris? It's a mess here too.
Yes, but I think they've won 7 or 8 games. The Pistons have only won 6.
They're
games,
like battling. They're like battling for the bottom. It's not good, Chris. It's like the battle.
Definitely. Hey, quick thoughts on before we get to the NFC Championship games from yesterday. Just quick thoughts on the Eagles melting down this last month and a half of the season, and their new hires in Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, and Vic Fangino from the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, so you can tell, I think a lot of people were surprised that Nick Sirianni was keeping his job. I wasn't surprised. Yes, I know Eagles fans weren't excited, but all in all, Nick Sirianni has obviously done a very good job, as a whole with the Eagles. Yes, I like most people couldn't understand how they broke down, Chris. I'm like, well, what is happening? Like this team is so talented. I remember last year's Super Bowl, I was like, oh my gosh, these teams could be back. I said, these teams could be back. And of course, I got it right with the Chiefs. Not so much with the Eagles, but still them obviously getting a chance to be in the playoffs. But, the Eagles, I remember Chris, I remember the game. I was in Arizona. I remember the game, and the Eagles had that game. You think, and then you thought this year was just going to be unfinished business and wanting to get back there. And they looked really good as a whole until the end when it mattered most. And, I think for the Eagles to have that meltdown and, and to know Jalen Hurts' story and what he's been through, to really earn respect, as a quarterback in this league, it was hurtful because I think on paper, the Eagles have all the talent in the world, but who cares if you have all the talent in the world if it doesn't come together on the football field? And so I think for the Eagles, it is going back to the drawing board, figuring out how do we refine our identity again. I was watching the Eagles last games. I really couldn't tell you, Chris, who that team was. I didn't know who it was. I thought that, it was imposters, it was pretenders, it was somehow doppelgangers got in for this guy. Something had happened because it just wasn't the Eagles team that we had known as of late. And so all that to say, I think the new hires are great. Sometimes you need that new fresh breath, for the players to, just have a new start. And I think that's going to be what's good for Philly. If I'm Philly fans, I'm not fretting. I think they still will be especially good in the NFC East. Obviously, the NFC is going to be a lot tougher. We see what the 49ers have been able to build, what they've been able to do. We just touched on it. We're going to touch on them more. The Lions, they're going to be a team that is, I think now it's going to be budding and building that you have to watch out for. So I think, I think the road is not going to be easy for the Eagles, but I do think it's a road that can be controlled and tamed for Philly if they are able to fix their own internal problems. Philadelphia reminds me a lot like Baltimore, where a lot of the issues were things that they need to fix. Not so much other teams exposing them, but things that they can fix internally. So if I'm Philly fans, I feel your pain. I'm sorry for you. But again, I think with what's happening, I do think they'll hopefully be on the right track. I think Nick knows that, he has. I still remember his introductory press conference when no one thought they could take him seriously. And I think about what he's been able to do. But I also think he knows there's disgruntlement, with his fans and obviously inside that locker room, I'm sure as well, since the Eagles didn't finish with where they wanted to. So I think he knows a task at hand. And I think the Eagles know, where they need to be back to hopefully be in New Orleans next year, Chris, for Super Bowl potentially.
Fingers crossed. But hey, I was listening to talk radio in Detroit last night. Of course, the Lion fans were upset and disappointed, but I heard people ridiculously want Dan Campbell fired. I'm like, this man has done more in Detroit in 1 year than the last 50 years in Detroit. And it's
they forget everything else that has happened. Did they hit their heads on the way out the stadium, Chris? Like, what's happening?
And you know what? Like, he might have made some poor decisions in the second half by not kicking the field goals, but there was receivers that dropped footballs. Gibbs fumbled the ball at the So I think you win as a football team, you win as a team, you lose as a team, and I just don't think it was on one person. I think it was a combination of the players and the coaches, and I think the inexperience of them not ever being in a championship game before against a very good San Francisco team was the factor in that game in the second half.
Yeah. I looked at that Lions team. I think back to my time as an athlete, Chris. You know how your coach would always tell you there's no I in team? And yes, there's no I in team, but smart person like me said, no, coach, but there is a me in team. And that's if you rearrange the letters. And I think what each team needs to do when they lose is realize I was part of the reason why they lost, and what can I do to make myself better? I think that's what you have to take from that team mentality. And so when I looked at the Lions, and let's be honest, anytime you have a 17-point lead, a 17-point lead, and you fall apart in the second half as the Lions did and allow a team to come back. Was it 27 points? That's on you. That's on you. And yes, folks can be mad at Dan Campbell. Like you said, I understand the field goals or the fourth down. Like, there's everybody wants to point fingers, and obviously he's kind of become the most popular fall guy, but Dan Campbell talked about it. Like, the road is going to be harder, but I like to think the Lions had dogs in the locker room. Anytime CJ is starting to wave like this and feeling confident and stuff, it's on you to control that sideline and make sure every man does their job. And obviously the job was not done. Yes, the fumble hurt them. Yes, I still can't get over, the catch that Ayuk made, after it hit the helmet, it's just crazy things happen, in that football game. But all in all, the Lions controlled their destiny. And yes, I know they were the road team, but still, like, the Lions, again, when the game first started, Chris, people were turning off the game. They thought it was going to be over. They went and scored so fast and so quick. And I was like, this is exactly what Baltimore didn't do. So now the Lions are able to do what Baltimore didn't do, and being able to control, again, the pace of the game. And then again, being able to put points on the board quick so that San Francisco had to respond. But there's two halves in football. You got to be a football team it's a tale of both halves. You got to be strong in the first, and you damn sure have to be strong in the second, right, Chris? So all in all to say, I think the Lions, again, I think their game plan is just, it kept unraveling and fell apart, and it seemed like nobody was taking control. One thing you have to give San Francisco, and I still, I'm still going to call him a game manager, but Brock Purdy, he was able to do the drive, and show that he could be clutch, essentially, right, and get his team down the field. You have Jared Goff, somebody who was a proven quarterback, Chris, right? And anybody that knows sports, knows what Jared Goff can do. And, but he needs his receivers. He needs his guys to also be able, to do the job with him to get down the field. So all in all, I feel for the Lion fans, but Dan Campbell is a great coach. He is a great coach. I mean, if you've heard his speeches throughout this year, if you hear how the guys talk about him in that locker room, he instilled a new sense of belief in a team that was lifeless for a long time. He's interjected something into the veins where they've waken up and, they really are playing team football and playing for one another and playing unselfishly. But, I think anytime, again, you have that lead and you fall apart, you have to look at each other and look at what happened. Why was the defense able to let San Francisco be so successful? Why did Detroit's offense not continue to be able to keep producing? And so all in all, I think the Lions, again, I'm proud of what they did. They had it. They fumbled the bag, Chris, because it was there. I really thought it was their time, but all in all, the best team will prevail at the end. And at the end of the day, the best team, the playmakers, Christian McCaffrey being able to step up for the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, I know he's been playing good football all year. Let's be honest. He plays football since he's been in this league. When are we not talking, about CMC, what he's able to do? And I mean, obviously Brock Purdy also played well in the second half because the first half obviously was struggling. But, I think the San Francisco 49ers had guys that were able to step up in a way that, again, the Lions players, and they started so strong, Chris, like it hurt. It hurt for them, because you have talented, receivers. You have St. Brown and you have people that can step up for the Detroit Lions. But at the end of the game, again, they weren't able to do enough to pioneer that drive back, that clutchness that they needed in order to win the game. So if I'm the Lions, again, I'm proud of what I've done, but I'm hurt. I think it's a tie for the third largest comeback allowed, Chris, in this type of game. Like, you can't do that. You just can't do that. There's no excuse. And the 49ers, hey, they live to see another day.
I just don't think they're going to be able to do that against Kansas City. We'll get into that before I let you go, a previous Super Bowl 58. But Kelsey, I wanted to get your quick thoughts on the AFC Championship game between Kansas City and Baltimore, and then just a little bit about the Super Bowl 58 matchup.
Yeah, of course. So Baltimore hurts for a lot of people here in my neck of the woods, Chris, because Baltimore is a team that looks so complete. They look so complete, finally getting back healthy. You get Mark Andrews back, before this game, even though they've been hurt at running back. You look at J.K. Dobbins and Mitchell and, guys going out. We had guys that have stepped up, and Gus Edwards, has been so great. And Justice Hill, you signed Dalvin Cook, right? So the running game should still be strong, and running the football had done so well for Baltimore, including because of Lamar Jackson. They abandoned the run. You look at how Lamar had struggled on third downs, being able to convert. I felt I was hitting the panic button, Chris, after the first drive when they weren't able to do anything and get down the field. And they go 3 and out, and it's the beginning of the game. What do you mean? You're not able to establish any type of rhythm or motion. And sure enough, Patrick Mahomes gets the ball, and he's able to protect, he's able to stir up 2 successful drives, Chris, resulting in points, which is very Patrick Mahomesy and very Chiefsy. I look at Travis Kelsey, who somehow, some way against this top defense was able to continue to find holes, bullying, and really battling Kyle Hamilton. I saw the size difference, the physicality difference, I'll say, between Travis Kelsey and Kyle Hamilton, who has been a stud for Baltimore, Chris, all year, which was unfortunate. The long drive, it's just all in all, I just felt Baltimore, again, I thought they left their identity. Lamar at times, I felt like he should have ran, and he was staying in the pocket too long. The first fumble, that he had, the pressure's coming in. Baltimore's offensive line, Chris, was getting tested that entire game. Baltimore had to get the ball out quick, throw a screen. You got to do something. You have to make this offense go, because your offensive line is getting tested, and it has been one of their weak spots. Kansas City's D-line was bringing it, and Lamar was feeling the heat. You can't be back there the pocket too long, keep thinking when the pressure is coming on you. And I think about, even I know a lot of people are blaming Zay Flowers, but again, another guy that's been a stud as a rookie, folks, for Baltimore. But, I know he was trying to put the game on his back when he's trying to go in for that touchdown, but you got to protect that ball. The defenders are right there. You're playing an experienced Chiefs team. Even the taunting penalty was very annoying. Like, I know Kansas City, and Travis Kelsey was doing it the whole game, but football's also a mental game. You can't let guys get into your head. You have to keep your cool, right?
Discipline.
Yeah, you can't retaliate. When Kyle Van Noy and there was just dumb penalties by Baltimore that they just know better. They know better, but the Chiefs were playing into it. You're at home in your home field for the first time since 1971. Like, you have a chance to make history, and all in all, like I said, it just felt, and then OBJ getting lost until like late in the second half, I felt like Baltimore, again, they lost their identity. It likely had been special. I don't think he was targeted enough. So, I think Baltimore, everything that was working for them, again, they just left and went away from it. And I think, again, like I said, Lamar, I think, Lamar Jackson has to put it on himself, you have to be able to be clutch when time matters. Because all in all, even with all Baltimore's mistakes and the 3 turnovers, this was still a 17-10 game, folks. This was still a game that Baltimore could have been in, or was in, and actually had a chance to potentially even tie and at least maybe force overtime, in this game. But, I think Baltimore's defense, after the quick touchdowns by Kansas City, they were able to do their job. And the defense did a hell of a job, Chris, being able to contain Kansas City. Kansas City, I have questions about in the Super Bowl, because you look at how Baltimore's defense was able to really kind of stop progress, right? And that's why Baltimore was, again, still in this game. But all in all, I think the offense, again, just was no offensive consistency that was able to keep occurring for Baltimore to really establish any rhythm to get anywhere. But I'll say this, if you've been running the ball so well, and you have somebody as special as Gus Edwards, who's especially so good in the red zone, getting touchdowns, you can't just forget about him, Chris. You can't forget the run. You can't keep throwing it. Your offense became predictable, I think, for Kansas City. And I think that's kind of why we ended how we ended. So Baltimore, I think, when you leave your identity and leave who you are, you get exposed. And Kansas City found those gaps, and they were able to get the win on the road, while Baltimore had to lose at home.
And the thing is, Baltimore should have watched how Buffalo ran 185 yards against Kansas City. And that's what I expect the Niners to do against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl too, is Christian McCaffrey. A lot of running games, because I think Kansas City's defense can be run on, same with San Francisco's, but they basically made Baltimore into a one-dimensional team. Now, Kelsey, if you got a couple more quick minutes, I just wanted to ask you if the Ravens playoff, I know they've won 2 Super Bowls, but they haven't been to an AFC title game in 10 years. So this was new for most of these guys. Do you find that was the same factor with the Ravens, with the Lions as well, being in a championship game for the first time against teams like Kansas City and the San Francisco 49ers, who have plenty of experience?
Honestly, for Baltimore, I don't think that was a factor. I think Baltimore beat themselves. I really think Baltimore beat themselves. I don't think the moment was too big. I mean, they know everybody was behind them. And Baltimore, feeling like they were underrated this entire season, like that nobody expected them to go there. People having questions about, could Lamar prove himself, after the contract and things like that. So, yeah, I think Baltimore, no, I don't think the moment was too big. You had legends back in the house. You saw Ray Lewis come out, and you saw T. Sizzle, come out. I think really re-energized that crowd. But no, I don't think of course, Patrick Mahomes has that experience factor. But again, when you look at the game, Chris, and this final score, Baltimore still could have won this football game. You think about Zay Flowers had tucked that ball, if he's able to even get down to the 2 or 3 yard line, Baltimore probably will be able to punch it in. I think about Lamar Jackson throwing that ball in triple coverage, Chris, with likely in the back of the end zone, even though I think it was pass interference there. You know better than to ever do that, Lamar. You don't ever throw into triple pass coverage, especially against a team, like the Kansas City Chiefs. So all in all, the Baltimore Ravens, I think, honestly beat themselves in a game that, again, that they really had power to win, that now they're, for the rest of their lives, they're going to look back and just think what coulda, shoulda, woulda been.
You could say the same thing for the Packers and Lions too against the Niners. They had chances to win the game, and they just didn't make the plays. They made mistakes, and absolutely. And teams like San Francisco and Kansas City will take advantage of miscues.
Yep. And again, I'm not taking anything away from both those teams. I'm excited that both of them are obviously there. They've both earned the chance to be there, but again, I think the Lions and Ravens fans are probably looking at one another side-eye just saying, man, we both had it. We both had it, and we both gave it away.
And you could say the same thing about the Buffalo Bills too. They had chances to win against Kansas City too.
They did. Yeah. Kansas City somehow finds a way, though, and that's why they are Kansas City Chiefs, because they can take it, like you said, take advantage of those miscues. And Patrick Mahomes can be consistent enough to always put his team in a good position.
Okay. Kelsey, do you have 2 more minutes just to talk briefly about the Super Bowl? Okay, I'll make it up to you, I promise. Thank you so much. What are your quick thoughts on Super Bowl 58 rematch between Kansas City and San Francisco from 4 years ago in Super Bowl 54? And what are some keys to a Chiefs/49ers win in this game?
I'm actually excited about this one. I mean, first off, let's be honest. We're going to Vegas. So, I mean, who doesn't want to win a Super Bowl in Vegas? I think there's a lot of storylines. And I think many of us are saying, can Patrick Mahomes get number 3, Chris? Is he going to keep adding on to those fingers? I think it's really exciting. I think because you think about the dynasty that the Chiefs have built. And this year, especially, Chris, this was the year that everybody doubted the Chiefs. Receivers dropping balls, including, tight end Travis Kelsey, who has somehow turned it up a notch, in the playoffs. And, how much of a factor he will be. Pacheco, what he was able to do, for the Chiefs, I think, was great. The Chiefs receivers are going to be a big question. Can they continue to be able to, obviously be able to step up in the big moments, catch the football for Patrick Mahomes and be reliable? But, I think San Francisco is just hard because there's so many weapons. Like we talked about CMC, and he's a stud, and he somehow, some way continues to find like the best running gaps, to get through the ball. Obviously can also be a pass catcher in space. Brandon Ayuk, again, we saw his display. Debo, Samuel, don't need to obviously talk much about him. And, the person that's really not getting talked about a lot, but he can step up a lot is George Kittle. So I think San Francisco is like the Chiefs defense is going to have to step up. But the Chiefs defense, let me tell you, I don't think they're talked about enough, but they play very well against the Baltimore Ravens and being able to contain that Ravens offense. I do think they have guys that aren't as maybe talked about on defense, as other guys, talking about what Snead did, and how that just, it made a difference in that football game. And I think especially you're going to have to press these guys, because again, San Francisco has so many weapons and talents. I think the biggest key to success for the Chiefs is you got to pressure Purdy. Purdy under pressure, I think will make a mistake. And I do think that's going to be a turnover opportunity, for Kansas City. So you have to pressure them. But I think on the other side for the Chiefs, think about Nick Bosa and the sacks he just got, Chris. Patrick Mahomes is someone I think that can handle pressure and somehow able to be Houdini. So I think the 49ers will bring that pressure. But I think instead of more so on Mahomes, I think you're going to have to put it, in your coverage. What kind of coverage are you going to do to make sure you contain these Chiefs wide receivers? Can you stop the Chiefs run game? Because they'll run, even though they're not the best at running, they will run the football as well. And so I think that's going to be a big question. But the biggest thing, how do you at least cause some discomfort, for Patrick Mahomes? How do you make him just, somehow, some way not be able to do those incredible things that he's able to do? I think is going to be key. But I'm telling you, I think the biggest thing is I think it's going to be a turnover game. Brock Purdy, again, I like him, but under pressure, I worry about him, Chris. And again, if you have a turnover, it cannot be against the Kansas City Chiefs because they will take every advantage of it. And also, I think what Kansas City did last game, but they're able to do that, control the clock, Chris. Their drives ate up so much time. If Kansas City is able to replicate that again, I think San Francisco is going to be on the short end looking up and wondering where time went. And so I think Kansas City is going to be hard, but they are beatable. San Francisco is going to have a really good game plan, I think, in order to win. But if they can keep this team healthy and everybody steps up as they have been for Brock Purdy, I think it's going to be very, very special. They have Warner on defense as well. Like the San Francisco is very complete on both sides of the football. So I actually think we're in, Chris, for a very good Super Bowl game, which I think will be closer than folks might be thinking.
And I'm wondering if they'll put Greenlaw or Warner as a spy on Mahomes because Mahomes is dangerous. Yeah. Everyone talks about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, but Patrick Mahomes is like the magic man. And when he gets out of that pocket, he can move.
He's incredible. I mean, that's what's hard. It's hard to game plan against him. Like, I remember, the Ravens were rushing him, and he somehow got this ball out, with everybody around him in pressure. Like, that's just Patrick Mahomes. And so, like you said, game planning against him is going to be hard. But I think the biggest thing, Kelsey can't have 119 yards. I think if you can somehow really limit Kelsey, I think it limits the Kansas City Chiefs because it forces other guys to step up in a way that I don't think they've had to. So it's going to be very hard, but somehow, some way, in every game, I see Travis Kelsey find holes and gap coverage. You gotta put bodies on him. You got to put bodies on him, and you can't make it so easy for him to be able to catch the football from Patrick Mahomes because their chemistry is too strong.
I'm going to say I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game, Kelsey. I'm going to put you on the spots. Chiefs or Niners.
It's hard to go against the Chiefs. I just saw what I saw, and I know Patrick Mahomes, and like you said, he's been here before. I think it's going to be a close one, but I'm picking the Kansas City Chiefs to go for the slight edge, and I'm looking forward to Patrick Mahomes' dad talking about what he's smoking on after the Super Bowl win.
And before I let you go, my friend Ray, who's got a host of his own podcast, the No Huddle Football News Podcast, real good guy. Quick question for you, Kelsey. Is Lamar Jackson in the same category as Josh Allen now?
Very, very interesting. These guys like to be compared a lot. I think they are two different quarterbacks, but I do think they are, because I think the question for both of them is we know they're both great, but can you get to a Super Bowl? Can you bring a Lombardi back home? And so I think that's going to be the questions on both of them. Like, Patrick Mahomes has been able to deliver time and time again, and not only get to the game, but be able to get rings. Right. So at the end of the day, I think Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, we can talk all about their greatness. We're probably about to talk about Lamar's MVP. But at the end of the day, it's about if you can win that ring. We saw Joe Flacco be able to step up some for the Browns. I know it didn't end how it was, but you're talking about a guy who won Super Bowl years ago. We had to go back to 2012 and was almost, able to get a Browns team, through a playoff win. So all in all to say, yeah, you got to get the Super Bowl home. And I think that will quiet the negative narrative surrounding both of them.
Does Andy Reid retire if the Chiefs win back-to-back, and that gives them 3 rings?
I said Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have at least probably 2 to 3 more Super Bowl wins in them. And honestly, Andy Reid, I think he just loves this game. I think he just loves this game. And if you have such success with the Chiefs, I think what's pressuring you to run? What's pressuring you to go? So I think Andy Reid for you. I don't know. I think Andy Reid at least has 2 to 3 more Super Bowls in him with Patrick Mahomes.
And you know what? And the thing I like about Andy Reid, he's evolved over the time with the players. Unlike the guy that was in New England, I think Bill Belichick, great coach, whatever, but you have to evolve over time. You can't keep coaching like it was back in the past. You have to move on. And I think Andy Reid can still relate to his players even now.
Yeah, in a way. And that's why, you see it. You see his bond with the guys is very special and very unique. And, Andy Reid, again, continues to prove, why he is one of the greatest coaches of all time.
I know. And now the Philadelphia media is like, we shouldn't have fired him. But I'm like, guys, you can't go back 10 years. Like, Andy Reid had a great run in Philadelphia, and I think maybe it was time. He did. Donovan McNabb, he had some great teams, but he just didn't have the teams good enough. I really like Andy Reid as a head coach, but it was probably the best for him to move on, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs role has been perfect for him.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. There's no rush for him to leave the game. There's really no rush for him to leave the game. So I think Andy Reid is comfortable, and I think he's enjoying it, which is really exciting. And yes, I will be leaving out for Vegas. I leave on Sunday, Chris. So, oh my gosh, I need to pack and get together. So I'm super, super excited. Super Bowl week, as you guys know, it's just going to be so much fun. I wish I were covering my Ravens, but obviously fate had another way, but I'm excited for the game. So yes, be sure to follow me at The Real K Nelson and Kelsey Nicole Nelson to stay tuned to Super Bowl coverage.
I did put in for a media pass, but unfortunately I didn't get it because my station wasn't big enough, but that was okay. Well, I'm going to apply for the NFL Combine, which is in Indianapolis. So I'm going to apply for that, and fingers crossed. Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
So I'm going to apply for that. I'm going to keep trying, and I don't let no's turn me down. It's not a failure. You should not.
No. I always say turn no's into on and turn on to something else. And you just talked about it, Chris. So I'm excited for you. And I hope to see you soon in person at one of these events.
Absolutely. And we'll wrap this up, Kelsey. What's a fun fact about you quickly that nobody knows about? And where can my audience follow you on social media and your website again?
Let's see, a fun fact. I kind of see this on my social media, but I can play the piano. So maybe if I weren't in sports, maybe I should have just kept in the musical route. But social media, you can follow me at The Real K Nelson. And please don't ask me to do a recital or anything. I'm basic, but I can play. At The Real K Nelson, you can follow me on social media. My website is KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Excited to connect with you guys. And again, just talk sports and be on the road to Super Bowl.
All right. Well, hey, Kelsey, I want to say thank you for giving me some time out of your schedule. I'm sorry I kept you over 25 minutes, but I really appreciate you coming on. This is your 3rd time, and I definitely would like to have you back on again in the future again.
It's always a pleasure, Chris.
Thank you sports, so much. But yes, continued success in your career. And before I let you go, when is your next KNN podcast coming on for my audience?
Yeah, tomorrow night. I'm so excited. I'll be welcoming former Cardinal Eric Swan to the show. So I'm so excited. It's returning back. Listen live at 6 p.m. Eastern time. It is going to be a blast. I'm so excited to be back.
6 o'clock tomorrow night. Okay. And also it'll be on all platforms, right?
Yep, correct. So make sure you tune in, bring your questions, and come and rock with me and Eric Swan as we talk Super Bowl, his career, and so much more.
All right. Well, Kelsey, I'm going to let you go, but I want to say continued success and
Thank you.
enjoy Super Bowl 58. Make sure you take lots of pictures and videos and have a great time down there.
Thank you so much, Chris. Always a joy to have you. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Kelsey. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, guys, that was season 7, episode 32 with my friend Kelsey Nicole Nelson. She's a sports host, reporter, professor, podcast host of her own show called Listening with KNN. And her next show is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern with former Arizona Cardinal Eric Swan as well. Let's see comments here. Ray, who's the host of the No Huddle Football News podcast. Great guest, Chris. I hope to see you at the Combine. I will put in for a media pass with the NFL, and we'll see what happens. And Kelsey is such a positive person and really great guest, and I wish her nothing but the most continued success in her career as well. And also, guys, I want some other news for you. My next live with CDP Sports Talk, again brought to you by BarryCullen.com, on Tuesday, January 30th at 3 p.m. with Claire Alfrey. She's a morning news anchor with Good Morning Jacksonville on the First Coast News Network. And at 6:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night, a doubleheader again, I have Nicole Vereen. She is an academics mentor with the University of Tampa Bay Athletics Department as well. So 3 o'clock, Claire Alfrey, 6:30, Nicole Vereen on Live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph. And before we wrap it up, guys, I'm going to play a little demo reel of Kelsey Nicole Nelson's demo reel from her YouTube channel and show you guys a little bit of her work. Please subscribe to her YouTube channel.
Cam, thanks so much for joining me here on the live. First off, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And going back to just home and where you're from, I mean, if I had to ask your parents, Cam, what you were like as a kid, what would they say about you? Welcome back to the Best of Unfiltered, presented by Pepsi, the official soft drink of the Washington football team. Now, on this week's episode of The Fit, I had a chance to interview Morgan Moses from inside his own closet that included a legit bank vault lock on the door. Wow, you could say he takes his fashion game pretty seriously. Let's check it out.
Now, on this week's episode of The Live, I was joined by Washington linebacker John Bostic, who talked about his love for traveling as he gets this, is trying to go see all the 7 wonders of the world.
Kelsey Nicole Nelson here outside the API practice facility with offensive line coach for the Washington Valor, Deontay Savage. Deontay, your last game, I know it probably scared you a bit. It scared us fans. You guys had 22 second-half points. Describe what was said to the team in the locker room to kind of get them going and to rally. Baker Mayfield, I do like him. I think, of course, he's breathed life into this Cleveland Browns team that for a long time now has needed this life and air. Now, when you say Cleveland Browns, it's not just a guaranteed win, right? It used to be you saw the Browns on your schedule. You might not even go to that game. You pretty much marked it as a W, right? But now that Baker's there, it's new and it's fun and he's exciting. And I think he's giving this Browns offense new life. And of course, the defense, when your offense is doing well, you want to perform, right? So they can continue to do well. And I think he has good arm strength. It's growing. And I think obviously he's mobile. Georgetown Hoyas are hoping on this very court that it's not deja vu to last season, where last time the players played this team on this very court, Georgetown was on the losing side, losing 78-62. Now, right now, Georgetown trails the series all time, losing 3-19. But we're hoping that this is a really great game. Now we'll be giving it over to Ben Gordon Goldstein and Monica Moore for tonight's starting lineup. I had a chance to speak with both head coaches coming out of the half, and I'll first start with Villanova head coach Harry Perretta. I actually got a smile and laugh at him. He said, right now, we just need to make our shots. They're not knocking down, and if we can do that, we'll play better in this half. He said, I told the girls, again, have confidence. You can make these shots. We're missing great open looks. He said Georgetown is having the same problem. And he said a positive on defense. He thinks this team is playing pretty solid. Back here on the court with the winning head coach from today's game, Georgetown's head coach James Howard. First of all, congrats on the win, coach. But I have to ask you, I know it kind of started off slow, just 3 lone points after that first quarter. What was said during halftime to really get the players going, coming out so strong?
Hello, everyone. Welcome into our NBA Finals edition of Last Night Tonight, presented by Valley Sports. I'm your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, joined by our NBA insider, Brandon Scoopy Robinson, who's joining us live at the conclusion of Game 2 at the Chase Center. Scoopy, lots to talk about in this one. We heard them playing too short in the arena before the game ended, And better believe, folks, that there will be lots of that blasting tonight in the Bay Area. In front of a sellout crowd, the Warriors dominated the second half, protecting home court, scoring a dub for the Dubs. The series, folks, is now knotted up at 1-1. Warriors spoiling Al Horford's recent birthday celebration. We heard the MVP chants from the crowd when Steph Curry touched the ball, and he truly played like that, Scoopy, especially in that third quarter.
Drink your water, we eat our vitamins. Let's get into it, Scoopy. Got them. The Game 7s came and went. We saw two teams be triumphant last night.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into our new edition of Last Night Tonight, presented by Valley Sports at the conclusion of Game 3 of the NBA Finals. As always, I'm your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, joined by our NBA insider, Brandon Scoopy Robinson, who is joining us live from Boston. Scoopy, what a game it was. We have to go all the way back to June 13th, 2010 for the last time an NBA Finals game was held in Boston. Well, the crowd, folks, they were glad to have it back. They were letting the Warriors hear it, as well as the listening TV audience, okay? So basically, you heard it throughout TD Garden the entire time. St. Louis was also in the building. We had Nelly performing at.
All right, guys, that clip was courtesy of Kelsey Nicole Nelson's YouTube channel. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I want to say thank you again to my friend, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, for coming on live with CDP Sports Talk for a third time. And check out her podcast, Listen In with KNN podcast tomorrow night at 6:00 Eastern with former Arizona Cardinal Eric Swan. Kelsey is one of the best young broadcasters in the business, and she'll be at Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. And can't wait for that game. Chiefs Niners. I am going to make my Super Bowl 58 prediction and thoughts and predictions this weekend. I think either Saturday or Sunday as well. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up the show. But again, I want to say thank you to Kelsey Nicole Nelson for coming on here. Live with CDP Sports Talk is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And also, I have some Super Bowl news here, guys. It is going to be the most expensive Super Bowl on record for Super Bowl 58, according to SeatGeek and TickPick, with the average ticket prices ranging from $9,875 US to $12,082 on the secondary market. For the reference, it is 70% more expensive than Super Bowl 57's average ticket price of $5,795 for TickPick seat. So if you want to go to Super Bowl 58 this year in Las Vegas, you're going to be paying 70% more than you would have last year. And I also think it's because of the location, the first ever Super Bowl in Las Vegas. So you're paying for the location, and it's a lot of money. I did apply for a Super Bowl NFL media pass. Unfortunately, I didn't get it this year, but I'll be watching at home, and I'm hoping to possibly be in Indianapolis in February to cover the NFL Combine as well. But my friend Kelsey Nicole Nelson will be at Super Bowl 58, so make sure you follow her on social media pages and her podcast show as well. Finally, guys, we're going to wrap this show up. Just give me 1 second. My radio station's website, if you want to listen to my show live streamed from 8 o'clock to 9 p.m. Eastern, or during 12 to 2 during the Rod Peterson Show, WQEEFM.radio12345.com, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, /X, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. So if you follow me, Chris Palme, on Instagram, you can watch Live with CDP Sports Talk there as well. And my website is beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. All my social media sites and all my media work and previous podcast radio shows are on there as well. You can also follow this TikTok content creator at Live with CDP. That's at Live with CDP on TikTok as well. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports Talk. If you're into webinars or podcasting, check out StreamYard.com. You can get a basic plan for free, or you can get a plan like I have, professional plan for $49 US a month. Or if you're a business that's into webinars or live streaming for your business, check out StreamYard.com and contact the sales department there for more pricing as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, and Tuned In. Finally, you guys can email or text Live with CDP Sports Talk at cpalme19@gmail.com, or you can text the show at 519-820-7188. Comments, questions, suggestions, feedbacks, always greatly appreciated as well. And again, I want to say thank you to Ray from his No Huddle Football News podcast for coming on here tonight. And check out Ray's podcast, No Huddle Football News, on his YouTube channel, and check him out. He's a really good guy. And that's about it, guys. I will call that a show, but I've had two great shows today. I want to say thank you to Kala James from the Kitchener-Waterloo Stratford Perth Humane Society for coming on here today. That episode is already downloaded to all video and audio platforms. And again, thank you to Kelsey Nicole Nelson for coming on as well. I hope everybody has a great evening. And again, I have two more shows tomorrow at 3 p.m. Claire Alfrey from Good Morning Jacksonville from the First Coast News Station. And 6:30, I have Nicole Vereen, an academics mentor at the University of Tampa Bay Athletics Department. So tomorrow, 3 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. as well. I hope everybody has a great night, and thank you again for watching live stream and on audio Live with CDP Sports Talk. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. with Claire Alfrey from Good Morning Jacksonville.